Thank you so much for being with us here on this Saturday afternoon. You are here on CMajor Before the Show. I'm your host, CMajor Porter, and we are not live today. Believe it or not, we're taking a break from being live, but we definitely wanted to be here for you. You're listening to CMajor Before the Show. Today's topic is about opportunities. I've been really thinking over the week after having several conversations with my students, what would be the overarching theme for the week? And I'll have to say opportunities to play music outside of the lessons, opportunities to perform, to provide music for events, to participate in competitions in the greater New York City area. So if you are a teacher and you're listening to the podcast, thank you so much for tuning in. I just wonder if my colleagues go through these things. That was one reason why I started the podcast, because I was hoping to have a conversation with other teachers, other teaching artists. And I just really wonder what you deal with during the week. I had to talk about it. I couldn't hold it in any longer because it just felt like there were so many issues that were coming up that seemed to be unique to the way that I go about doing the lesson. So maybe that has something to do with it, but I'm really, really hopeful for my students. I'm really hoping that their talents will lead them to where they want to go and that they will continue to have the love and the support of their families. And so we're talking about opportunities. I thought I might be playing a little bit today, but I thought about it and I said, you know what? I played the last couple of weeks. So let's just take a break from playing today. If you are able, though, after today's podcast, please join us over at the CMajor Radio Show. That's our main podcast. Believe it or not, that's our main podcast. Although it sometimes feels like CMajor Before the Show is the main podcast, but we are here to talk with you about the issues and do some rote presentations. And then over at the CMajor Radio Show, we try to put it in writing for you. And even if we are talking about playing music in a rote way, we still will spell it out for you. So whether it's in text or whether it's actually spelling it out for you on the staff, that's what we're aiming to do, giving you a way to write down what you've just heard or what we've just referenced and talked about here on CMajor Before the Show. So thank you so much for tuning in. It is really, really cold here in the greater New York City area. 13 degrees this morning. I couldn't believe it. I really thought I was saying things, and then just knowing that the temperatures wouldn't get above freezing today, that it would only go up to around 31. It seems that it did go a little beyond 31 degrees, but it's colder than I thought it would be. For an early spring, it really is a little bit more chilly. So step away for a moment if you can and just open your minds to how it must feel to be a student taking piano lessons for fill in the blank number of years and still not be where you want to be. Just put yourself in that place for just a moment, that mind space. Also put yourself in the mind space of your families who may have expectations about where you are going with your music making. And then put yourself in the mind space of that student who is focused, who has their aspirations set on going to college and going on to a career in medicine or in law or something else, maybe even politics. Sometimes here in the greater New York City area, we take it for granted. We think that things will be available at our fingertips, that you'll have a way to get your music out there. But as I've found as a teaching artist, also just as an artist, it's not so easy sometimes. Where do you turn? I find myself having those conversations with students that really want to know if there will be recital opportunities for them, if there will be other performing opportunities. And so in addition to the open mics, in addition to the usual festivals and competitions that are in the area, what else is there? That's what we're talking about today. So mainly I'm picking your brain today because I want to hear from you too. I want to know, where do you think you should be playing? It's so different than what it was in the 80s, what it was in the 90s, what it was in the end of the 20th century. And now here we are in the 21st century. Where will you play if you want to play piano? So when we started this podcast early on, we were referencing some of the public areas that you could just sit down and play on the piano. I think they still have that program available in Port Authority. And then I was watching a video earlier this week, just looking at a young person. I'm not sure where he was based, but he was playing a piano that was out in public and had drawn a crowd, and they were watching him. But just think about that for a moment. All of the money, all of the time spent in lessons. Where will you have a chance to apply what you know? And when do you study so that you know well enough how to apply what it is that you already know? So I had to step back a little bit this week as well and really think about my students who were really internalizing all of the information, and the ones that didn't quite know how to make the information stick. So my heart goes out to any teachers that are going through that. I know there are a lot of solutions out there. There are teaching aids that you can take advantage of. But here's the thing, unless the student is really, really taking it in and using that information and applying it, it's going to be difficult for them to really get it to stick, for them to really have it to make sense and to help them going forward. Another conversation I could have maybe over a cup of coffee with someone. That reminds me, I need to talk about coffee with you. There was a drink revelation that came across my desk this week, and I'm going to put this in my notes right now. Coffee drink. So I will be mentioning that a little bit later on. By the way, we're not going to spend that much time today. I think we will probably be with you for maybe about 30 minutes. And then we'll go over to the CMajor radio show and spend about 15 minutes. So we're cutting it short because I feel like this is a long weekend for a lot of people. You had Valentine's Day. We said we were going to mention Valentine's Day. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to anyone who had a good Valentine's Day, if you do celebrate, and give a shout out to my students that will be celebrating President's Day coming up, and some students even have the whole week off. So shout out to you guys. But let's get back to the opportunities. It really is, I don't like to use the word concern, but it really is a thought. Where will you play your music? And where will these teaching pieces get you? You know, sometimes with the parents, they really are not so quick to believe that the teaching pieces are necessary. They think that maybe just playing a song that you know is the best way to learn piano. I would have to say, in my experience, I can agree with that on some level. I can, because sometimes, in some cases, playing a piece that the student is excited about or the family is excited about really does help the reading. That's what I found. Also, this week I had a chance to explore the thought, the proposal of opening up a space or taking advantage of an open space for students to flow in their music making. What would that look like? And to be able to be among your peers and not be in a competitive environment, but just to be able to play and to bounce ideas off of each other. And there was this film long time ago that I heard about, and it talked about how piano players rarely play together. I have to look that up, but I believe that's what it's called. And so I have yet to see an opportunity for a group of piano students to get together just to jam together, so to speak. But no pressure, no preconceived ideas of what they're going to play. They're just flowing in the moment. They're using what they know about piano to really listen to other players and make music together. But they're all just keyboard players or piano players. I have yet to see that. But it's true. If you play piano, it feels sometimes like the piano is the orchestra. Although some composers believe that you should not use the piano to write, that you should write away from the piano. Don't treat the piano like it's an orchestra if you're writing a piece for orchestra, but just step away and see if you can write just by hearing what's in your head. But we're talking about a jam session. I have yet to see a group of 5 or 6 piano players or keyboard players just get together and just jam. I tried to do a little bit of that, but it was in a keyboard class. It was in a music class that was devoted to sequencing. And so when we were just playing sounds, multiple sounds together, not piano sounds together, just multiple sounds together, and the professor came in the room and he said, "What is going on?" Because we were trying out all of these far out sounds and really stretching the keyboards, the possibilities that were inside the keyboard, the digital keyboard. But what if you had 5 or 6 just piano players that got together and said, somebody just start playing something on the keys? Or if it's a real piano, then you have an opportunity to go inside of the strings, inside of the piano, and maybe prepare the strings in some way. Use some sort of percussive approach to it. What would it look like if you had 6 piano players sitting there and they all were performing the John Cage 4 minutes and 33 seconds? What would that look like? Something to think about. But we're talking about opportunities. So I'm just wondering if an opportunity to play at a community event is something that a lot of young people are experiencing today. I don't know. It's really hard to know since music was taken out of the schools and only certain schools have music programs. I'm posing a lot of questions. I'm just really trying to get you to think, but here I go. I'm going to go online for just a moment. And I'm going to point out just a couple of opportunities, again, that came across my desk. And they came up in conversation this week. So if you're outside of the greater New York City area, just know that I would recommend try to find something maybe similar to these opportunities. Look into them, see what's available. The other thing that came to mind is, would we really need to start something brand new, or is there something there already available for students? And I'm not talking about like School of Rock. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone that's learned to play piano up to a certain point, and not in an open mic situation where they're playing a piece, but they really want to see if they could put to use what they already know. For instance, if you learn to play in the key of C, if you learn to play in the key of F and the key of G, what would happen if somebody put a piece in front of you that's meant to be sung with a live audience, or in some cases a congregation of some sort? Would you be able to do that? Would you be able to handle it? Would you be able to use what you know about piano to make music, to be a leader in that? This is something to think about. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go to the computer. So you're going to hear me typing. And this is in no way a promotion for anything. It's just really saying I'm bringing this up for conversation. Okay, so I was thinking it was IMG, but it's actually called IGM. So if you care to, and I'm going to post this link over in CMajor's classroom, probably either tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to post it so you can see it for yourself. But there's a competition venue that's available, and it hosts something called the International Music Competition. Looks like International Grand Music Competition. So used to seeing coffee culture names, I almost said International Grande Music Competition. But anyway, as opposed to Venti. So I was not that familiar with this competition. Maybe in the past I've seen something similar. But take a look at it and see if you think it's something that, if you are a piano student, it's something that would encourage you to apply what you think you know when it comes to music making. Or would it be a turnoff? Would you just say, no, not interested in that? So to me, it just seems like it was something that's an alternative to taking maybe an exam. Now I'm going to go to something called Jazz House Kids, because I hear they're doing a lot of great award-winning work over there. So it's a nonprofit organization as well, and it's closed right now, but it really has gained a really strong reputation for having kids discover what they can do in performing arts camps and very reputable programs. So you can go there, you can see some of the videos that are up, you can learn a little bit more about the programs and what they do year round. So they have classes, they have summer workshops. I mean, it just really looks like they try to do a lot There are awards that you can participate in, awards programs for students. And just take a look at that. I'm going to post both of the links. Okay, so if you're listening to today's podcast, just know I will be posting links for these two websites for you to take a look at as possible opportunities for students that you know that may need something like this. So good luck to you, and thank you for listening to the podcast, and thank you for keeping the conversation going. Give yourselves an applause for that. I really mean it. We're about 20 minutes in on the podcast, and I just was very contemplative. I just said, today's podcast episode should really be about opportunities. And it's going to be pre-taped. I'll post it. I'll have a chance to really fine-tune my description and post a picture that I think will work with the podcast. And so I just wanted to take my time today and not rush through the podcast, but at the same time, keep it short. Okay. So look for that over at CMajorPorter.com. That's CMajor's Classroom, the official website that we have over at WordPress. And we are very excited that we're able to keep it going. We've had about 100 posts over there. And, we celebrated our 200th episode not too long ago here on the podcast. So thank you for listening. I'm really excited about where this is going, because what I foresee is that as long as we keep the conversation going, we're going to really start to fine-tune things even better for you and really be able to focus on what it is that you need as a listener. So I'm excited about that, because the team is really, really working hard to keep us here, and they're just amazing. So thank you so much. Opportunities to play, I would say, not only involves scales, knowing your scales, and not only involves knowing chords, but it also involves really knowing the types of songs that you may be accompanying, for instance. So if you're more on the introverted side of things, you may just find yourself backing up a congregation or backing up an audience, a singing audience, whether it's for patriotic songs or whether it's for pop songs that a choir is performing, or even if it's just for recreational fun and you decide to see what you can do. A lot of times the opportunities that were coming to our community were fun opportunities. Nothing was ever too serious where it was just going to put you in a place of being embarrassed, but you had to get out there, and it was not even something as high pressure as improvising on the spot. I still have a couple of students that are not comfortable with that, but for the most part, I have students that are extroverted enough where they will try it, at least in private. So I would just say know where you really want to go with your music making. Sit down with your family. Sometimes your family doesn't know. Sometimes it takes a teacher to partner with you to say, this is what I'm seeing in this student. And then sometimes it takes the parents to say, I know my child. I know that he or she will be more interested in playing the music of John Legend as opposed to the music of Mozart. And then you have that one student that says, no, I'm not interested in the music of BTS. I want to learn to play the music of Beethoven. That's what I'm interested in. So sometimes the student knows, sometimes the families know, sometimes the teacher knows best. So I would say that it's a really strong three-way conversation a really focused three-way conversation between the students, the parents, and the teacher. And then sometimes an institution gets involved and the research gets involved, and the research says, no, look at it this way. Look at it from this dimension. Look at it from this dimension. So that's interesting too. And then what's even better, I've found, is to be able to talk with a group of colleagues that have an opinion one way or another based on research. Maybe they don't have the same teaching experience, but yet you can put it out on the table and say, hey, this is what I'm going through. What does it sound like to you? Congregational songs, songs that an audience can sing, patriotic songs, pop songs, recreational fun. Find that little niche that's going to work for you. It may be jazz. It may be something else that really piques your interest, and then you think, okay, this is where I fit. One friend used to say to me all the time, get in where you fit in. I think there was some truth to that. But let's say you're in a place where you are learning to play by chords, and then you have to put those chords to use. I would say really know the chords for the music that you're playing. So how are you going to do that? That teaching aid may come in the form of flashcards. It may come in the form of something else. It may come in the form of maybe just playing with somebody, jamming with somebody that you know that doesn't read music like you, or vice versa. If you don't read music well, jam with somebody who does read music so you can get a different perspective on things. Just open up your mind. But I would say know your key signatures and really, really study. So speaking of which, I want to give a shout out to some students who have really surprised me this week just with their enthusiasm. I have a student right now who is so on fire for learning to play by chords. He just exclaimed to his parents, guess what? I just learned something new. I learned how to play by chords today. So shout out to that student. That's fantastic. I can't tell you how that feels when you think you've somehow had something to do with the light bulb that goes on the moment when a student realizes they have the power to do something. That confidence that really kicks in. And so I'm not sure where this is going to go with their music making. Will that student now surprise me next week, and then I'll go there and find out they are making up their own songs now using chords, learning how to put sounds together using chords. They've grown into that because it sometimes takes a certain hand strength too to learn how to play by chords. We were working on chords today with a student who is learning to play 1 and 5/7 in her left hand, and then learning how to build that same chord sequence in the right hand, but yet learning how to lean in to the keyboard towards the fall board to reach that black key. So if she's going from a G to a D7 chord, how is she going to do that? Is she going to play F sharp, C, and D in the right hand, coming from GBD? How is she going to comfortably do that? And then how will she use her arm weight? Those are the things that we were working on today. So very excited for her. So shout out to her too. Very happy for the student. She's also coming to the end of one of her books, and she's about to graduate, receive her certificate to go to the next level. So we're really excited about that. Know your key signatures. How are you going to do that? We talked today with a student who is really excited about transposing. It's coming. He's in the same book as the other student. And so he's really looking forward to the possibilities for transposing. And then the opportunities to show what he can do may come in the form of an open mic. It may come in the form of finding some peers to jam with. So he's looking at opportunities. But I'm excited for him. Now, what I'm really excited about is that the same student has just opened his eyes to the possibility of performing Hanon technical exercises in multiple keys. So shout out to him. Very few students will take on that challenge. That was huge. Huge. Very excited for that student. Because, if you study Hanon and you played every exercise in the key of C, that's fine. I once met someone in New Orleans who was challenging me to transpose an entire sonata. I had to pause on that one for a moment. Think about that. Basically, he was saying, okay, take Mozart's sonata in G, K283, and let's not play it in G. Let's play it in D. Can you do that on the spot? And I thought, okay, this person is teaching in New Orleans, and he must be challenging the students to transpose every single sonata or sonatina that they go through. But getting back to Hanon, I would say I agree with the experts that say play Hanon in any other key but C. In other words, you don't have to start with C. What about D? So the fun thing was with the students, we're still finding out the fun and the funny in our piano lessons, by the way. Keeping it light, keeping it fun, keeping it funny. So I showed the student how to play those same exercises in D, and he was just amazed. Like the light bulb really went on, and he just thought, okay, this is what I really want to do. So I hadn't seen him be that excited in a long time, not since he learned to play Beethoven very early on. Who does that? 6 months into piano lessons, you say, okay, I'm learning to play Beethoven, and actually follows through with that. So again, big shout out to that student. I have another student that surprised me this week, and this never came to mind. How you can use Alexa. How can you use Alexa to help you with your piano practice? So here she goes. She made Alexa use a 10-second timer. Because her piece required her to try to play with a repeat this particular teaching piece in 10 seconds. So she had the mindset to say, you know what? I'm going to tell Alexa to do it for me. Alexa, set a 10-second timer. And she says, 10-second timer starting now. I just thought that was just great. And so to be able to talk with her parents about how she was using technology to help her with piano practice. So very, very excited for her. She made it in 10.5 seconds. She improved her timing, where she was coming before from 15 seconds, and we figured out how to get it down to 10.5 seconds. And one way we did it was to change the dynamics. She is in control of her learning, and she said, it's a little distracting for me to play it on the repeat as piano if I'm going to be timed. Then I have to focus on bringing down my sound. I might lose a second or two by doing that because I hesitate. Can I please keep it at the same dynamic and play forte both times? And I said, I see nothing wrong with that. So shout out to her. I think that's great. I love it when my students have their thinking caps on. They're really directing their own learning and thinking about ways they can make things possible for them. And it's not just left up to me as the teacher to say, okay, you cannot step over this boundary. You have to do it this way. I think I lose out when I do that, and I feel like I learn so much from my students and their learning styles and their wants when it comes to piano, and their needs when it comes to what they need to get to that next step. One more shout out, I think, today. You know how I feel about students that play with nail tips. And you've seen those pictures posted here on CMajor before the show. And I just have to laugh because I think that's so in fashion now, here in the 21st century. And it's something that my piano teachers would not have allowed. I just complimented the student on how beautiful her nails looked. She had cut them down low because we were having some problems with her playing on firm fingertips. And then she cut them down low. Beautiful manicure, just wonderful. Only to find out that her plan is, very soon, to now install nail tips. So we're trying to figure out, when I say we, I mean her family and I are trying to figure out how she will be able to practice her pentascales now with the nail tips. Luckily, it's just pentascales. So then there's no thumb under, there's no fourth finger over. You're not really focused on playing the full scale or playing 2 octaves, things like that. And she's not yet at the Hanon stage. But somebody needs to figure this out. If you are a pedagogue or someone that writes music methods, books, I would love for someone to figure out how students with nail tips can learn to play piano. I bet you that would revolutionize piano lessons, and piano lessons will never be the same if you all come in with razor sharp nails, but yet you're learning how to play. I think it's possible. I mean, if you look at some of the country music stars that wear nails, they're still composing at the piano. They're still playing guitar. They're still playing their instruments. But anyway, it's all in good humor. I have to laugh. Thank you so much for tuning in today. You're here on CMajor before the show. We've been trying to open our minds today for opportunities to play the piano, how to get your students involved. If they're learning chords or learning scales, how will you get those sounds into the community? How will you do it? That's our most pressing thought today. And that thought is going to continue over at the CMajor radio show. We will talk about the chords that you may be using. I'm going to spell them out for you. I'm going to even talk with you about how they are positioned on the staff. We'll talk a little bit about scales. We'll also talk a little bit more about maybe my history of playing, but yet I'm not going to be playing today. I think I might be playing some next week. We'll see. And so it's not a shout out. I just want to say I'm really, really excited for my students that are carrying on with Mr. Roboto. So I may be mentioning Mr. Roboto again as we go into the recital months, and to see who's going to be playing for open mics, who's going to be playing for recitals when it comes to this particular piece. So I have at least 3 students that are interested in it. So I'm excited about that. Now, the last thing I'll leave you with is a coffee drink. As you know, I really believe that music and coffee go together. And so I'm very excited about coffee culture and all of it, really. There's a festival in New York. If you are the type of person that wants to compete, if you are a barista and you're competing, that's fine. But what I really want to know is, how do you make a drink that tastes like strawberries? And involves coffee. How do you make a coffee drink taste like a strawberry shortcake or something with a strawberry taste? Do you use raspberry with that? Do you use real dried strawberries? Do you use a puree of some sort? Do you color the foam? Or do you put the puree in the bottom of the cup and then fill it with coffee? And do you make it hot or do you make it iced? And if you do make it iced, do you just use foam or you also use milk? So many things to think about. There's so many possibilities for making something taste like strawberries in a coffee. So stay tuned, because I might be experimenting with that flavor. Last week, if you were listening, you know I talked with you about the excitement in fixing an iced drink with just cold foam. But I'm really wondering about this drink now that everybody's talking about it on the internet. Something that involves strawberries and raspberries. And the reason that it came about was because of Valentine's Day. How do you make a drink taste like chocolate-covered strawberries? Basically, I think that's what it was. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you next week right here on CMajor Before the Show. I have no idea what our topic is going to be for next week, so you'll just have to tune in. And you also have to tune in to see if we're going to be live next week or if we're going to be something else. I don't know. We may decide to just pre-tape and then post it. And then you can download it at your leisure. Thank you so much for your love and your support. I really put out some love messages yesterday, and I really meant it from the bottom of my heart. I love Facebook. I love all of my friends on social media who really support what I do. I'm not so crazy about some of the things that come to my emails and some of the things that come across social media, but you know what? This is the times that we live in. So I'll just keep it positive and keep it light and say I love you. Thank you so much for making this podcast what it is. Thank you for your ongoing support, and we look forward to bringing you the best conversation we can bring to you about music making, talking with you about making music, encouraging you to make the best music you can make. And we'll see you next time right here on CMajor Before the Show. Take care.